Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystify.
Welcome everybody to the Dave and Dharm Demystify show, and this week we have a very special guest at the Dubai Summit, and that is Mohamed Abdel Razek, who is the head of technology at Mashreq. Welcome, Mohamed. Can I get you to give us a little bit about your background, and then we'll like to demystify what Mashreq is doing with technology.
Superb. Thanks, Dharmish and Dave. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. So my name is Mohamed Abdel Razek. I've been in tech for over 30 years. This is my fourth industry. So I started in telco, then went on to oil and gas, then fast-moving consumer goods, and eventually ended up in financial services for the past 9 to 10 years. I've just joined Mashreq from Standard Chartered Bank. So I was in Standard Chartered for the last 9 years and then moved to Mashreq a year ago. So I've been at the helm of technology, transformation, and information for the past year.
Fantastic. And I guess with your background, I'm really intrigued. Is there anything that you learn about technology and their use in those other industries that you bring to the banking sector that is, kind of different for banks?
Yeah, sure. So by far, tech and oil and gas is very engineering oriented. So the technology use there is really from research and development all the way to applying the technology in the field. And this brings a lot in finance as well, because you're experimenting and pushing technology at its limits in the finance industry. In fast-moving consumer goods, there's a lot to do with understanding the market, understanding the driver of consumption, understanding the offtake of your own product. So there's a lot of sort of end user and marketing and client-oriented technology drive in terms of planning the next release or planning the next product to hit the market and then measuring its success. So very similar, you bring that when you launch digital and you're measuring the metrics of usage of the technology. But by far, I find that in financial services, the technology usage is the highest in terms of pressure, in terms of upkeep, in terms of volumes, front end and back office. In other industries, it's a lot of back office, less on the front end, but that's changing with the newer technologies.
Wow, I think it's totally commendable that banks have started to bring people from the outside. Certainly when I've spent 30 years in banking technology, initially with banks and then with startups, but traditionally you kind of see that they promote within or they get from another bank. They don't really get real external influence, and in the last decade or so, we see a lot more from the outside influence, more so from tech companies. But, you coming from different industries, that's quite an interesting mix. Can you tell us a bit about what you find interesting that Mashreq are doing now with technology? Are you able to say what kind of like new technologies you're adopting?
So Mashreq embraced digital before a long time ago. Right? They were the first to introduce ATM in the Emirates, for example. This goes back in their history. So it's in the DNA of the bank to innovate, and it's in the DNA of the bank to progress with what's new in the market, right? We're quite nimble, and there's no fear in, let's say, fail right. I won't say fail fast. A lot of people say fail fast, but I believe it's fail right, with the right risks associated. If you test something small, a use case, and then you grow it from there, and then that grows into the market. So we are very, very focused on client experience. This is our mantra. And with that client experience, it comes in the form of digital. And that really drives everything we do, right? So higher digitization, but client journey focused. So everything that's being done at the front end is facilitating very much that experience for our end users. So can you digitize those journeys and bring them in their home, in their phone, not the old branch and have to displace the branch. So when you do loans, when you do cards, you want to facilitate, deposits. Anything you do is at the, touch of a phone or clearly on the website. It's quite easy, the journey there. So we have to support that front end with the right back end because digital comes at a very different scale. So what we're doing currently is resilience focused and, let's say, renovating our core banking. We're driving more on the API first. We're driving more on introduction of, robotics and AI and ML have been around for quite some time. And we have a lot of use cases, digital worker that's been programmed. We have 39 digital workers actually, like named employees almost.
Wow.
They're a PC, but they are driving different things 24/7, right? But now we're moving more into the Gen AI and moving more into, let's say, the virtual assistant. The branding is really great as well because we're not only doing it in the Neo brand, is not only here in Dubai, but we have Mashreq Neo in Egypt. We're launching a digital bank. We're one of 5 licensees in Pakistan. So we're in SIT, we're in integrated testing already with our infrastructure and front end, looking to go live with friends and family this year. So quite a lot of interest in, as well, mass banking and financial inclusion. We have and Mashreq Neo in Egypt. This is a SDK embedded banking as a service within the Etisalat app. So that gives us a reach to 30 million potential clients. And then same back end, they can log into our app. So they have it embedded in the Etisalat app, and they can also, now if we reach, a couple of million clients there in Egypt from some 60,000 we were or something like that to active, a high base, it would be fantastic. Pakistan, the same. We go digital only. There's no branch. Right. And we're cruising to be one of the first to go live of the 5.
Wow. You mentioned something which perked up an interest. I mean, I know Dave is keen to talk to you about customer experience, but before we get into that, you mentioned that you're renovating your core. I've got 2 questions. So one is, what is your core at the moment? Is it something that you developed in-house? Did you buy that before? And then the other question is, what do you mean by renovation? I have a view on it, but I mean, obviously I'm keen.
I have to say, I was going to ask about the renovation because that sounds like a brilliant way of putting things. So yeah, keen to understand more about that.
Look, core transformation, let me say it that way rather than renovation, is very key. We're traditionally with Oracle, and we have a Flex core, and we're going with the latest on the Flex side because a couple of years back, the trade, the cash, there was a study done, and the decision was to settle on Oracle product. So we're in execution because I don't like, honestly, hesitation because you've already spent money, you've gone down the road, you've spent 2-3 years. Reversing that now would not be wise. So I'm pushing more into, well, let's get it done and reap the benefits, right? So with Oracle's latest product, it's all API driven. The core is hollowed. So I have a core, but I have a payment system, I have a trade system, I have a cash system. They are all outside the core. It's not this monolithic cores of the past, right? And I understand where the question would come from. So everything we're doing now is sort of API driven. We make sure that the APIs are published, internal and external, in our strategy and architecture, so that we can integrate with Open Finance. We can share our data, seamless to having a Flex core that would be modernized, right? 11x is a good 15 years back, right? So, and then of course, as you would know, customizations are not welcome. So because then you would get into another era of, not renewing the core, right? So I want to keep customizations to the bare minimum, which is the regulatory pack and, any other particular product that was used in the past or configured in the past, but I really don't want to carry that level of customization moving forward, right? It was done. I always say things get done at a time. They were done for good reason. But that reason changes with time. And you have to reconsider the time you're in and the time that's coming.
From what you described, there is an awful lot going on. And I mean, I'm an experienced guy, so I love the fact that, there's a real focus on the front end. I think one of the things I'm sort of interested in is the relationships in the bank itself. So between the various players that are involved in what is going on. So, in traditional terms, what would happen is IT would deliver against a set of requirements that the business would write, but the business were not always best placed to write those, so things would just take a long time. And it was more like Game of Thrones than something where people were kind of working together. So I'm just kind of interested within Mashreq what the relationships are, how you sort of organise to kind of seize the opportunities, because it sounds like there's a lot more flexibility being built into the technology which enables greater things.
A very pertinent question, and it leads to one word called Agile. So we are in a digital studio format already. So we have one digital studio in wholesale or corporate, and a digital studio that is compartmentalized by journey group, right? And there's one head of digital squads, tribes, where I have the tech guys embedded with the business, and they run their development and change with the support of technology. We have a matrix organization where actually the direct reporting is to the business and the dotted is back to me for development. I run all of the core middleware infrastructure. That's direct to me. But then we have sort of an SRE model or system reliability engineering between the standards that are being adhered to and accepting them into go live or into production. So there's a gatekeeping between development and what we do in the back end. But the organization is in matrix format. We follow a journey structure specifically on the retail side. On the corporate side, the product is big because it's all Oracle-based, payments, cash, so you have to do it in the traditional fashion a little bit more in terms of requirements and release. But once we get there, we'll have, smaller squads looking at cash, payments, trade enhancements. We keep a budget on the side for what we call the request, the requests and the changes, and that's managed to deliver the quick change as well, and not have it sit until technology has the capacity to do it, right? We manage it that way in an agile format.
Fantastic. And I mean, I have to ask, as you mentioned it, about Gen AI and, what is going on from a kind of AI perspective, because, that has impacts, profound potential impacts internally, but also from a kind of customer point of view. So I'm just keen to understand what you're doing, if you can talk about it, around Gen AI in particular.
Super. So look, on AI and automation, well, let's say automation we've had for quite some time. There's a huge focus on AI and Gen AI. I mean, our CEO, our chairman are, driving this themselves. We have everybody on their MBOs has to have an AI strategy. It's to that level, right? However, as the head of tech, I'm the nearest custodian at this point in time. I mean, everyone's asking, do you have a chief AI officer? Is that a title that someone carries in your organization? That will come, right? Like you've had a CISO. Before, we never had CISO. We had the head of tech, and they did whatever they want, they could in cyber or whatever. Then the CISO emerged. Then the CDO emerged, right? The chief data officer. Then now I'm not sure we've ever had a blockchain officer. That could have emerged as well, right? So the AI officer, I call it a center of excellence. So what the approach we are taking is we're building a light structure in the middle to govern, to set the ML ops and run the whole ML ops structure so that nobody can just go and implement models without the right security settings or the policies or So once that's established, then we will catalog all of our models and we'll go from there. Other things have to happen congruently, which is your responsible AI, your ethics, the whole structure around introducing it properly before running out with it with the business, right? So we're setting that up, but then we're leaving the businesses to bring to the forefront, like digital, their requirements, right? Because if you think about Gen AI, it's about content, it's not about technology. It's about the actual data set that you are looking at, and it's the workflow. Like, so use case of virtual agent, right? As an example, virtual agent, I have to make sure that my head of CX and the head of contact center is the one driving that interface, right? Not I drive the technology for her only, if you know what I'm saying. So there's quite a bit of drive in the bank. We were looking at use cases across risk and credit scoring. We already have like translation services, document ingestion and summary, training programs and literacy across the bank. That's very important. It's from the board to the exco all the way to business user and developer. So we're certifying 20 or 30 of our developers around Copilot and the use of, Gen AI tools in coding and business support and interacting with our clients.
I mean, it certainly sounds like you're a progressive bank, which is fantastic. And I guess as we're at the Dubai Fintech Summit, I should ask, what is your kind of relationship with fintechs? What are you doing with fintechs? Do you see them as a competitor or do you see them as a partner? Are you investing in fintechs? Anything you can tell us?
Sure. So we are present in Fintech Hive. We have a spin-off company called Neo Ventures, and that evaluates different companies, either for us to venture into or to partner with. Partnerships are key in today's world. Now, whether you're going to go with a telco or a small fintech that has a niche technology, we're always on the lookout for partnerships. We don't take them as competitors, right? Open finance is coming to UAE in a very, very solid and methodical manner, which means there's a democratization of, your ledger outwards. So we have to be careful how we're going to share that data, how do we monitor the usage of data, and so on and so on. So this is quite an interesting model, but being here at the Fintech Summit is great. We see what's available, but yeah, we have a ventures board that looks at, like I said, either investment or things we can partner and leverage into our portfolio. So there's a really good relationship whenever we can make it work in terms of partnership.
So I'm also interested more in the Dubai or the sort of UAE aspect of what's going on. So, when was the last time you were in Dubai, Dharm?
Well over 5 years ago.
So the whole kind of vibe of Dubai has completely changed in the last 5 years. You can, the summit, you can feel the energy as companies are really looking to kind of embrace fintech. But I think, what's kind of interesting is then to kind of listen to the regulators and the government and, what they're looking to do around the kind of whole banking technology, fintech and future of finance space. So, I was kind of keen to get your perspective on the environment, and Dubai is a place to kind of be doing banking business.
The environment is nothing less than exhilarating, very fast pace, welcoming to growth, welcoming to new ideas. And we're not only there's more fintech houses. There's Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi, there's Hive here. There's a lot of encouragement for the investments to come here and to be, piloted from here. So as a UAE bank, we are very much encouraged to work with fintechs that are present in the country and see what can be done in that space. So, like I said, it's really the word that comes to my mind is exhilarating because it's very quick, very nimble, and accessible and supported by the government and even when the data policy, I give you an example, this was very progressive thinking and execution. When the data policy, you can create a data policy that is throttling as a government. Well, what happened was they had a release of it, and they issued it to the the American Chamber of Commerce, banks, Facebook, Google, AWS, for a full review to annotate what they can change, right? Or what they would like to, how would they encourage adoption, for example, right? Now that is extremely progressive. And I sat with the Minister of Data and AI, and he was talking about how progressive their approach is. So it's very well supported, and I think the more we do, we will create partnerships that have, new ways of doing banking and new banking products that will come out of the UAE.
So, when you look at places like Egypt and Pakistan as well, which you're kind of moving into, digital just gives so many opportunities for things like inclusion. And so are you sort of seeing those countries sort of looking at the UAE and some of the models you're creating and sort of creating their own models as well?
Yeah, well, banking is cultural, I have to say, right? And it's infrastructure based as well. So it depends what you have in infrastructure, what you have in terms of financial controls. So for example, Egypt and Pakistan, there's been hyperinflation in currency. So there had to be controls in currency embedded. Now, whether you are fully digital or whether you're banked, you have to follow certain rules. So there's a lot more care in cloud, data access. And the policies are upcoming. Let's say they're not there yet, right? So, for example, Egypt still is to release its cloud policies and standards. Until then, you apply and you go through every application separate. Pakistan, we are very progressive in terms of they issue the cloud policy on non-material, can be cloud, but material workloads have to be in country. We're talking to central bank there on having core banking out of the UAE for a Pakistan digital bank. So the conversations are happening as well, and they are progressively thinking if they want to grow their banking industry, if they want to be attractive to a foreign direct investment, then they have to change these policies. So it's an ongoing conversation, let's call it, for other regulatory bodies.
This is like maybe the fourth interview that I've done, and what's interesting, I spoke to the DIFC, the DFSA, I spoke to a venture capitalist, I spoke to 2 startups, and now I'm speaking to a bank, and it's all consistent that, the country wants to grow. They see fintech as a future. They want to do quality over quantity, and they're not afraid to take action immediately. This is what it feels like. It's I can actually physically feel like this exhilaration while I'm here. And every time I speak to somebody, the message is totally consistent. I've never experienced that in any other place before. I also think what is different here is that the government has led by example on digitization. If I look at, obviously places like India have done the same thing. They've digitized, they've created a stack. It's made a massive transformation in the country, the same as applied here. What I like also is that you're not afraid to take good ideas from somewhere else and use them here, but it's very tangible, this exhilaration that is, around this place. How different do you think the UAE will be in another 5 years' time with the progress that you're already making?
Well, it's all about growth agenda, and with this 5 years is even a very long span in terms of the speed and change of technology, in terms of regulatory change, in terms of what's happening with AI. Are the models going to go faster than, so far we've seen them multiply into, something much, much more potent than they were 2 years back. Now, surely there's going to be a lot more transparency, there's going to be a lot more data available in country, but all the big players are here, right? So Google is here, AWS is here, Microsoft is here, right? Everyone is, Oracle is here in terms of data center, cloud, SaaS provision. They're opening in Saudi, Qatar, they're opening presence in other countries in the Middle East. So I only see that it's going to continue, and the result will be a large growth in my point of view.
Fantastic. So in terms of just final kind of question, but in terms of Mashreq, I mean, sounds like you've got a lot on. Is there anything in particular, sort of any favorite project that you're kind of working on, which you'd just like to kind of tell us about? So,
yeah, sure. So one big product is the corporate stack transformation, because really the next gen that we are launching is a transformation of our corporate stack from quite a few years back, and the new one, the look and feel, the performance, the ability, it's all API based. You'll be able to do client co-creation, host to host is very easy. So we can really drive a difference on the corporate side, and we're due to go live with the last phase and start heavy customer migration. We already have 400 clients on it. By mid-year. I was actually reviewing it today, the go live of that. But I look forward, the next time we meet, we have a new corporate stack to demonstrate.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, really, thank you from me as well. I mean, it's been deeply insightful, and what you've shared with us is, phenomenal.
Dave.
Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystify.